Yeah. Hello, and welcome to episode 3?
Episode 3, yeah.
3.
Yeah.
Episode 3. That's a good start, isn't it? Episode 3 of Chewing the Fat, with me, Phil Cobley, and my co-host,
Adam Furman.
How are you doing today, Adam?
Love and life. No, really good. Really good, thank you.
Good.
Not ill, not tired, so yeah, all good.
Good, excellent. Recovered from the disappointment of last night's kind of round ball sporting event.
The round ball. Yeah, was it a disappointment or did I expect it? I expected it, so I wasn't disappointed. You know, they did us proud.
They did.
And yeah,
they did. Sorry, everyone. We couldn't do this episode the day after the final of the Euros, with England being in the Euros, without actually mentioning the Euros. So, I watched it, and I must admit I was disappointed. I genuinely believed that it's the first time ever we've had an English team where I actually genuinely believe that we could have done something. So yeah, I was gutted for the team, but very proud of them. Very, very proud of them. The result didn't go our way, but just the fact that we were there,
exactly,
amazing. So big shout out to the boys and to Gareth Southgate. Amazing job.
Exactly, and I'm sure they're listening. So
I'm sure
well
they
done,
are.
Gareth,
I'm sure they are. Yeah. Those regular Digital Forensic podcast listeners that they are. Yeah. Oh well.
See, look, we're under 2 minutes in and we've already gone off on a tangent.
There we go. We actually once again have a very full schedule for our podcast today. We have got we've had a very, very awesome interview with the legend that is Kevin Mansell. Here in the UK, who founded and still manages and runs ControlF, digital forensics training company, we had good fun with Kevin last week when we recorded it, I think.
It was last week.
Yeah. So we had really good fun with Kevin. He's a lovely bloke, really nice guy, and so. Well informed, I would say. So very, very valid views and thoughts. So we caught up with him to discuss training and training certification and kind of competence and accreditation in digital forensics. So that was really good fun. That was quite a long interview that we ended up having. I mean, Adam and I running over on time. It's not going to happen.
It never happens.
Yeah. Completely by accident. I think we decided to keep most of it afterwards, so we're going to try and keep the rest of this short.
We did, or I did. I ran into a few technical issues. I went against my own beliefs and tried to record on a Windows machine, and it let me down, and my camera dropped out, and I had a few sound issues. So if my sound quality is low, please forgive me. I have now worked out what I needed to do, so it's all recorded now. I'm back on a Mac, so my camera won't drop out. And apologies for when we get to that part, or that part. I've still got to put it together, so hopefully I can redeem something. But
well, there was a couple of bits where I think the camera dropped out and you dropped out and had to rejoin, and it was fine. We managed to kind of bumble through it, and as you do.
And people will listen to that part for Kev, not me. So,
I mean, it's true. I didn't want to say it, but it's true. It's a break from you and me talking, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. And as people will find out, Kevin has a shrine in the UK at a certain police organisation. So.
He does. It was news to me, I mean, you've made it when you've got forces building you a shrine in their lab. As long as there's no sacrifices and stuff, that'd be a bit weird.
That would be weird.
That'd be a bit weird, but you never know. You never know. But so we're gonna. He was also, before I forget, very kind enough to leave us. Was it 2 forensic faux pas?
2 forensic faux pas, and when you hear them, if you are part of them, please get in touch.
Yes. only a few. There was. It was to do with training courses. Both of them were to do with training courses, and no details were disclosed as to who was necessarily on those training courses. But if you were part of them and you remember the incidents that happened, please do get in touch. Just kind of let us know, because that would just top it off, I think. But they were very good faux pas. So thank you to Kevin for recording those with us as well. We do actually have some more faux pas, but we've kind of got banked ready to go that have been sent in, but we're probably going to have to do those on another show. So if you have written into us and we don't read out your faux pas, then don't worry, it's not that we're not ignoring you. We will get round to it at one of the episodes. So without further ado, shall we crack on with the news? Industry news.
Sounds good to me. Yeah.
We're going to blitz through this because I know normally we take about half the show talking about the news, but we don't have the time and space this episode, do we?
No, not at all.
So just kind of rounding up a few things, and obviously we've put all of the links in the descriptive pages below and with the episode. So if we're talking about anything or mentioning anything and you want to learn a little bit more or you want to read into it, then just go and visit those links. If we do miss anything, then just let us know. We can update that, but we'll try and put whatever we can in there. But just one of our main sponsor for mobile, they have had some recent project updates on track, doing some really good work. They've been putting a lot of bits out from their sister project, Locard, which is all around kind of the latest updates I saw are all around kind of implementing blockchain in the in digital forensic investigative processes, which I think is pretty cool, actually.
That is pretty awesome.
Yeah. And if we can, interestingly, we're going to scoot over kind of a little bit of that. There are some really cool updates, though. Go visit the links in description. But interestingly, there was an article for it was in Forensic Focus, but I actually kind of went and found the article from Science Direct as well that was linked in there. But it was Hansken, Digital Forensics as a Service. So it's an open digital forensics platform from the NFI, which is the Norwegian Forensic Institute, and it's essentially kind of they've done papers on it over the last few years, and it is this concept of digital forensics as a service, like you would kind of desktop as a service or kind of storage as a service or platform, all that stuff. They're trying to kind of promote this idea of kind of putting everything in the cloud, kind of making it available to kind of log in, register, and requests.
What, and that will have tools on, or?
I don't know exactly if it's going to have the tools on. I think it's more around the investigative process, the chain of custody, and the case management side of things. I think the tools will eventually get there, and I think the whole idea and concept of digital forensic service with the software going into the cloud and becoming more of a cloud service rather than an individual machine licensing kind of setup is probably going to grow. But they kind of it's this case management kind of investigative chain kind of
sounds really interesting.
The Forensic Focus article's really, really good. It's quite in depth. It covers a load of ground. But there are some links in there, and one of the ones that I did pick up and have a quick read was for the Science Direct article they did, because they've done actual published academic papers on the theory and the concept and all this kind of other stuff. Go check that out. That's pretty cool. There's one that I missed, which was with Windows 11, the announcement of Windows 11 coming out.
You mean you've seen the GIFs where they're basically just print, move, Windows start bar to center, close.
Basically. Or if it was like in a Linux environment, it would be like MV, Windows 10, Windows 11, return. But it's I find Windows 11 funny, given that when Windows 10 came out, Microsoft said there'll be no more versions of Windows. Windows 10 is it. That's it. We're done.
Yeah.
And now they're releasing Windows 11, which, I did laugh.
Yeah. You think with OS X, that generally doesn't change much. That they end up just adding new features, but the actual core of it stays the same. I thought Windows were going to do the same when they said, no more, we're Windows 10. And Windows 10 works pretty well.
Yeah. It does the trick.
But it is going to... I guarantee everyone's going to move that start menu back to the left.
Probably.
Because it'll be configurable.
Oh, yeah. It'll just come out... it will just be the default to that, won't it?
Yeah.
But... Yeah, I think. Yeah, I'm not sold on it. I'm still not necessarily a fan of docks and stuff. Even in my Linux machines, I end up still kind of having a very similar interface. So, yeah, I don't know. We'll see. But there was someone described Windows 11 to me as Windows 10 with enhanced CSS.
In a nutshell, yeah.
Oh, well, yeah, actually, probably. But the article that I'm mentioning was on ETW, so event tracing in Windows. And it's a short article, but some interesting links, details, information about some research and kind of bits and pieces that someone's done around just this event tracing and Windows, how it now works within Windows 11. I presume with one of the beta or dev builds. Yeah. And it's got some links in there to some really useful GitHub repos. So I haven't dropped those onto our descriptive page, but if you go into the article for Windows 11 ETWs, then there's some really good repos and stuff you can go and have a look at.
And that's the great thing with beta and dev builds, isn't it? Is that our community gets in.
Yes.
Breaks it all apart and has a look. And while we're on the beta subject, shall I talk about my findings in iOS 15?
I think that's probably a good link in. That's better than one of my tenuous links that I normally do.
So there's lots of changes in iOS 15. For example, Find My iPhone now still works when it's turned off, or it's actually Find My Network. It creates a link to its last known network. I haven't tested what trace that actually leaves, but the biggest thing that impressed me was Spotlight. So when you pull down to search on iOS 15 now, and you carry a search out, like the demo I gave Phil was I searched for the word danger. And it brings up the normal links, the internet links for danger, songs, apps, that sort of stuff. But at the very bottom is photos. It has now indexed my photos, and when I looked for the word danger, it found danger in a photo I took of an in-flight magazine, which is pretty cool. It's understandable.
And highlights and everything. It's like
So it's text. It can read text from a photograph of a magazine. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and some people will probably go like, "Oh, it's just OCR. It's just recognition. That's nothing. We've had that for ages." But here's the next cool bit. Go on.
Yeah. So the best part was then I showed Phil a photo of my little boy sat in our living room, and I could see Phil's face going, well, "There's no, is it?" And there was a box behind my son with handwritten "danger" on it, and iOS 15 Spotlight picked that word up.
Yeah.
And that impressed me.
Yes, and worryingly, I was just thinking actually while we were kind of about to go on air, the way that text was written in that photo reminded me of kind of one of those "I am not a robot" things where it's like, read the text from this obscure, and you get them wrong 50% of the time because even as a person you can't read half the things in there. It's just like is that an A? Is that a what is it? And that danger stuff. It looked so obscure because it was at an angle. It was handwritten. The light was on it a bit funny. And it still managed to pick it out. And very impressive.
But, and Phil sort of raised the question. Well, when does that happen? I don't during the update process when I updated to iOS 15. I know when you take a photograph, it now offers you translation as soon as you take the photo.
Yeah.
So it's scan and photo, but I should imagine it was in the update process that it indexed or ran OCR over all my images.
Yeah, I imagine so. But still, it's Yeah, quite impressive. And you know, you raised the question: where is that stored? What database is that in? Where are we going to find it? Because it's somewhere. It's somewhere. So, is it something that we're going to be able to get out of a standard backup? Is it going to be something that we're going to need to deep dive into? Full file system? What? Yeah.
Looking forward to it, and I'm sure our friend Mr. Hickman will have a valid image file for us to all test soon.
I've no doubt he will, and yes. Talking of Josh Hickman, he's got a new blog, which I was also going. It's funny, you know. It's almost like you knew what we were going to talk about in the news, Adam.
Yeah.
So again, another great link. But he's got a new blog called "Find My and iCloud's Throne of Lies." It's
I
a
love
good
the
blog.
way he names his articles.
Yes, yeah, and it's the GIF that he's put at the beginning of the article as well. It's the throne of lies from Elf, I think. You sit on a throne of lies, but yeah, it's a really good article. Obviously, you know, Josh does some fantastic articles, and in there he's talking about iCloud and the kind of Find My kind of applications and services and stuff, and in there he actually kind of mentions about turning off your phone and the activity being recorded even in an off state or an on state, and whether or not what it claims it can do is actually what it's able to do and what's happening. I won't give the game away too much, because I think it's a very good read, but it also really highlights the importance of understanding and implementing network isolation properly for seized devices. I did enjoy it. It's a good read.
Yeah.
So as always, thank you, Josh. Go on.
He ended up pushing out 2 blog posts in June, so I think there's another one on there as well. I think he released one on the 17th and the 25th. It was as if he went, "Haha, Phil and Adam have just recorded a podcast, now I'm going to drop a couple of links."
Yes. He did email us this week, or last week, saying that we're probably going to be able to get him on the show at some point in the next few months, so looking forward to that. But yeah, I think he was just trying to make our lives more difficult on purpose, chuckling to himself. But yeah, so that's again link in the description below. There was also an article on resetting your IoT device before reselling it isn't enough. Researchers find.
I know what reset I would do to any Alexa devices and things like that. It would be a hammer.
Exactly. Like the old days with a hard drive and a nail, just putting it through the platters. Just be like, there you go, it's done.
Exactly.
Yeah, open it up, get as much dust in there as you can, just kind of scratch it all up, and
a bit like the devices that get seized by major investigation teams and go, can you get something from that? Those sort of devices.
Yeah, those ones. Yeah, I remember. There was one of the phones I did before I finished. We kind of, I think we talked about it with Heather, where kind of the guy scrunched it up, and it was literally like half a 105 with like most of it missing. That was great fun. And another one was a laptop that a suspect had in the throes of pursuit, had launched it underneath a moving car, and so this laptop was kind of it still had the tyre marks on it. And so it was kind of run over a few times in the middle of a busy road, and that kind of came to me in pieces. And I go, "What can you get out of that?" Don't know. Got something though. It wasn't total loss. But yeah, so that's that article. Resetting your IoT device before reselling it isn't enough. I'd like to think that for a lot of us, this is common sense for us in the industry.
I'd like to think so, yeah.
Yeah, but it is a good read. So
to be honest, though, if you reset your phone nowadays, like I buy test devices off eBay, and the first thing I do is do a physical on it.
Oh, gotcha.
And they're pretty good now. They're pretty good. That it just does come back with stock. So I've been quite disappointed. I haven't found any fun stuff.
Well, this article was all based around essentially some forensic analysis on the device. So someone did get some. I can't remember if they got in some second-hand devices or if they used their own. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But yeah, they did some forensic analysis, and it's like, what can I get out of here? What's going to be there? Oh,
Yeah.
that was my phone going off. Yeah, so go and have a read of that. I think it's a good little thing.
Good. What have we got next? We're going to talk about Raven that was launched by MSAB.
Yeah, it's. I mean, you're obviously the person to kind of tell us about that one, but it actually looks really cool.
Yeah, it's basically XRY deployed to an Android device. It can be provided by MSAB, or literally, if your organisation uses Androids, you pay for a license and you get access to download the APK.
So you can actually get XRY on the phone, and then you and then you kind of over the cable.
It's got the same or similar functionality to XRY. So not full functionality, but it's got enough to do logical Bluetooth, that sort of thing, and it's mainly intended for like victim witnesses, yeah.
So can it do targeted extractions then?
Don't think it can at the moment. You wouldn't turn up and do a physical extraction with it.
No.
It's developed for sort of rapid. You stood outside a nightclub as a police officer. You've got your work phone on you. A victim witnesses, or a witness is videoing an incident happening outside a nightclub where somebody gets glass, gets bottled. They've got their precious life in their hand, their phone. They don't want to give it up.
Yeah.
With Raven, the officer could pop along, do a quick Bluetooth extraction of the video. They can even sign the consent form on the handset. It's all wrapped up, and that can then be brought in to examine and created as an XRY file.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So you can actually do phone forensics or get phone evidence without having to seize the phone.
Yeah. And and more is going to be added into the capability of it. But it's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool in fairness.
Yeah.
Nice.
And the actual kit, if you get it from MSAB, comes in a really cool little Peli case. I think it comes shipped with an S21.
Oh, nice.
So, but,
okay.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So
everything's better in a Peli case.
Yeah, of course it is. Peli cases are cool.
Custom cut foam and everything. Just, yeah, absolutely awesome.
But yeah, obviously a lot more on MSAB's website. They've put a few sort of YouTube promotions and stuff like that about it. So, but yeah, so be sure to give it a link or ask someone from MSAB for a demo.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Nice. Well, like I said, we'll put the link below for that one. I think we've only got one more thing that I was going to mention, and that was an article that came out from the Hacker News. And it's Android apps with 5.8 million installs caught stealing users' Facebook passwords.
Yeah.
And there's 9 apps in total, which came out, and one of them was over 5 million installs on its own. So there's a few that kind of had a lot fewer. But just show it's a really good article. Hacker News, it's they're kind of well-known source of these things, and it really highlights the importance for people to be vigilant when they're looking at these apps, and also the fact that these malicious apps are still out there.
Yeah.
So from a forensics perspective, I think it's still really important for investigators, even if they can't yet, or they're not kind of at a level where they feel they can, to get some training and experience in being able to reverse engineer some of these apps and investigate these apps and kind of go into the databases and kind of break them down and kind of learn how they function and learn how they work, because they exist, they're committing criminality, crimes, they're kind of and people are
and what about if someone offered a defence? I didn't do that. I must have installed an app that, the old malware defence.
Yes. Yeah.
It's no different to malware reverse engineering on computers, is it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So some of these apps were things like really mundane things like horoscopes and stuff like. And there's one called Rubbish Cleaner. Why would you download that anyway?
Because it's rubbish.
But and then there was a couple of locker apps as well, kind of like App Lock Keep and Lock It Master and App Lock Manager.
And this is where just people are just next when they're installing. That they're not taking care of what permissions are being asked for.
No, or researching the apps. They're not researching. They think because it's on the store, it's fine.
Yeah.
And that's not always the case. So yeah, really interesting article that kind of just wanted to throw in there as well into the mix. So go and check them all out.
But no, I think we've done very well. We've wrapped the news up in 25 minutes.
Which we normally take a lot longer to do.
But to be fair, we did say before we recorded, max 20 minutes.
So, yeah, we've even still gone over. Yeah, we really need to just stop kind of putting time limits on things and just go, it will take what it takes. So who was it said the other day that their favourite phrase, or they kind of heard during one of the shows, was like me turning around and saying, but I'm very conscious of time. But they're like, oh, you say it all the time.
But
So,
but we're clearly not.
No. But saying that, I am conscious of time. So let's move on. I think it's time we cracked on with the interview we had with Kevin Mansell.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So we'll cut to that, and we'll have all the introductions in that recording. And we're on. We are on. Right. We are here today with the man, the legend that is Kevin Mansell. And if I had a cheering kind of whooping sound, I would put a cheering whooping sound. I'm going to go. More budget.
And he's a legend because I've been in a police unit where they've got his posters up everywhere.
Just to be clear, there aren't any posters.
Not wanted posters.
That's not.
They're actually Hail King Kev.
Awkwardly, then they made those.
Is that better or worse than actually buying one? It's not clear, is it? But I am concerned.
Just for a legal perspective, did you give permission for your kind of?
I don't remember being asked necessarily.
One of the this is one of the Yorkshire forces.
Yeah. Maybe it'd be even better if it was like some kind of surveillance video where it was through a crowd and you were kind of looking kind of a little bit.
No, this is definitely a little shrine.
Yeah, little shrine to Kevin Mansell. Amazing.
That's a concern.
There's not that many people that can say they've had a shrine built in a police station. Just saying.
Yeah, I'm not often lost for words, but just feeling mildly awkward. But,
yeah, you didn't think we were after all that pre-chat. You didn't think we were going to ambush you or something like that.
not quite so early, anyway.
Awesome. Well, Kevin, thank you for taking the time out of your schedule. We know how busy you are, but thank you for joining us. It is genuinely a pleasure. For those who don't know, Mr. Kevin Mansell is he's the owner, founder, kind of lead trainer, genius, cleaner, admin clerk of the very well known in the UK particularly, and becoming more widely well known, the ControlF digital forensics training company based in Cambridgeshire in the UK. So thank you ever so much for being here with us.
Thank you for the invite.
No, I'm just very pleased you said yes. But for those people who don't know necessarily or haven't heard of ControlF or are unsure, would you mind kind of give us a little bit about you? You've got a bit of history with the industry, the digital forensic community, and just tell us kind of where ControlF came from and where your kind of beginnings in digital forensics started, please.
Yeah, so my beginnings in digital forensics started, I guess, with being made redundant, which was not a turn of events that anyone ever necessarily wishes for. Although, actually, I kind of did wish that my lesson from that particular employment that I was going through, I was working in a software engineering background for a company that was selling software to find fraud on telecoms networks. So outside of digital forensics, outside of law enforcement. But I guess in some ways there was kind of a parallel because we were using technology to try and help find people who were up to no good. Albeit it wasn't normally involving in kind of criminal prosecutions. It was about like a telecoms operator being able to bump people off their network and onto somebody else's, probably onto a competitor's. But I guess that was interesting to me because it was how can we use technology for a kind of societal good. But the company was great people at a ground level, at a technical level, the worker bees, should we say, or what have you. Less than inspiring management, perhaps. And I was kind of disillusioned, and I actually wished at one point to be. It was like, redundancy would be great. And then it happens. And then you're like, okay, I didn't really, did I? And I kind of guess the message from that was if you wish for something hard enough, then it'll come true. Wow. But during that period, towards the latter end of that role, I had already started to kind of, I suppose, find out about high-tech crime investigation within the UK. And as you may know, that at that time we had a national high-tech crime unit. So this is back in kind of 2003 time, I suppose. National high-tech crime unit based at Docklands and in London. And managed to make kind of contact with the National High-Tech Crime Unit, with an individual there who dispensed advice about routes into the industry and this, that, and the other. And one day he called me after saying that they couldn't kind of recruit civilian staff directly, and he said, "How do you feel about a training job?" And it was one of those where it was a little bit left field. I'd done a small amount of kind of customer training before, but very minimal. And it was one of those whereby you're not going to turn something down straight away, bearing in mind you were effectively unemployed. To cut a long story a little bit shorter, I came up to the facility at Y Boston here on the Cambridgeshire Bedfordshire border, met the team that was doing high-tech crime training for law enforcement in the UK. So I think I spoke on the Monday, came up on the Tuesday, job application in by the end of the week, and then became a trainer with the Centre for National High-Tech Crime Training within UK Policing back in January 2004. I started there. So 3 years teaching kind of digital forensics and high-tech crime investigation for the police, and then in 2007 founded ControlF. So, which I guess really to do the same kind of thing, teaching folks how to recover evidence safely, and of course interpret that evidence and find meaning within it. And so, it's kind of scary to think that ControlF started back in 2007, and here we are in 2021. So it's been a journey, but
go from strength to strength. I think with ControlF, because it's grown quite a bit, hasn't it? From those early days of just you.
I mean, as with all small businesses, I guess, like kind of thing. Back in the early days, and we're talking 2004, it was me and a laptop and a printer and a credit card, and that's like kind of it. And at those days, the thing that I remember probably most from those very, very early days was the fact that the backups of the data as a business at that point went onto a CD. They went onto a 700 meg like kind of CD, and we laugh like kind of thing, because you think about if you had to back up your organisation's data to a CD these days, there would be quite a few of those involved. But there was CD first of all, and then after a while it needed to go to DVD like kind of thing, and then nice. We've moved on since then. But, you'll be pleased to hear.
Yes.
And obviously, you took the direction of adding computer forensics to your syllabus as well.
Yes, we did. So that was a decision, and I had been. We have, a number of full-time permanent staff, but we also have a number of, as you know, kind of contract trainers who teach for us on an associate basis. And some of those guys had considerable experience in computer forensics and had been teaching computer forensics, not been teaching it, but been involved in it for longer than mobiles. They had started in computers and then moved into into phones. So we had a large amount of, I guess, untapped experience and knowledge and skills there. And so the guys nagged me routinely, saying, look, we could offer something, ControlF could offer something in computer forensics, and it takes a while, but eventually that kind of bubbled to the top of the list. And yeah, we've been really pleased in terms of the kind of take up that we've had for that over over the last couple of years. It's definitely like kind of on the up. So
that's good. And you sort of said it took a while. I don't think people, until they've been in sort of a training industry, realise how many hours it takes to deliver just like an hour's worth of course content. I think people often overlook that.
There's a lot of time, and it's funny because we laugh internally about the amount of gear, and Phil's actually kind of seen this firsthand, the amount of gear involved in running that training. I didn't think that, handset forensics, mobile forensics training, it could be any worse than that in terms of phones and cables and card readers and everything else. And yet we completely blew that away on the computer side, like kind of thing, because we've got multiple tower exhibits that people end up exhibiting and stuff like that. So it's the amount of gear, kind of. When I teach either the Python stuff or we teach like the data analysis, looking at hex analysis, it's just a charm. It's because it's like laptop, it fits on a USB drive and there's no cables, there's no phones. It's just like a blessed relief.
I must confess, because as some of our listeners will know, I do some training for you, Kev, don't I? And we've worked together in the past on a number of things. But when I actually recently sat in and observed on the computer course that Kevin was just talking about, with a view to eventually teaching at some point, and I was amazed, having gone from kind of delivering and kind of learning about the SAF course, the smartphone app forensics, which like you say, is essentially, other than a couple of phones, it's essentially a laptop and kind of analysis work. And then going to the computer course and walking in the classroom on day one and just looking at the number of Peli cases and kit and just thinking, how?
It's kind of ridiculous. We have taken it on the road. We have delivered it on site with a customer. Whether the trainers that delivered it that time, whether the trainers that delivered that would ever sign up to do that again, I don't know. But there you go.
That was a lot of kit. Just moving it from the classroom back to the office at the end of the course that was a major operation.
Yeah.
There was, like kind of proper crane work needed there.
So nearly 14 years in, and still learning, still haven't quite figured out how to do it in an intelligent way. But there you go.
But that, I mean, all that time in training and within the training industry, you've become quite. I genuinely mean it when I say you've become. And Adam, I'm sure will back me up on this. Quite a legend in the industry.
Well, they're the shrine, so legend status.
Yeah, there's the shrine. But you're kind of like the to take the phrase, you're kind of like a household name, or he's a household name in training,
like Mr. Muscle.
Yes, like Mr. Muscle, or like Silip Bang, or something like that. But with your because the tagline, isn't it? It's we make it make sense, which is what you do. You kind of people go on the course and they come away and they go, that makes sense now. I get it, which is fantastic. But given how fast this industry moves, because we all know how quickly this industry moves, how quickly technology changes. I mean, not even just from kind of feature phones through to the smartphone kind of evolution, but even on a 6-monthly basis, the amount of changes that happen and the way that it impacts the industry. I mean, you must have seen some considerable change in the kind of content that you deliver and the challenges that people face that you need to try and help them resolve.
For sure. I mean, it's interesting because, firstly, one of the things I perceive, or the way I kind of see it, is I kind of see it like a treadmill. Working in this industry, and certainly delivering training in this industry, is like being on a treadmill, right? Like it's not going to stop. It's going to keep going. And so if you want to play a part in that, you commit to running at a certain pace because both of you know from having worked in the industry long enough, is that if you don't keep that pace up, you're going to become irrelevant, right? Because your content's going to become dated, and people are going to know that it's dated, and then your credibility suffers and everything else. So there has to be, a commitment, I guess, to continuing to develop your own knowledge internally through research and development. But, simple things like refreshing devices, as well as like kind of the slide content and everything else, because it doesn't stay the same. And that becomes more challenging. We've got more courses now, of course, than we did at the start. And the more courses you have, the more updates there are to do. But we see it a lot on the acquisition side. Yeah. So when you're looking at, acquisition of data, of course, there's windows of opportunity, aren't there, that like kind of open up because a certain exploit or capability will come around, and they have a finite period of time, and then they kind of close. So, the point I made about the slightly calmer life of delivering analysis training, or like kind of the coding stuff without all the equipment, there's a slightly kind of perhaps slower pace, perhaps, as far as on the analysis side, maybe in terms of the fundamental kind of skills that you need. Whereas, as on the acquisition side, I mean, we used to run training in Flasherbox forensics. We've run training on kind of Android exploits and defeating encryption, and they were great at the time. And then either that gets integrated into a commercial tool, at which point that kind of, that need goes away, or alternatively, the device manufacturer kind of just closes the door, through an application, an OS update or something like that. So it definitely keeps you on your toes.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you think that the pace of that change is increasing as time goes on?
I don't know. I mean, in terms of, obviously there was a huge shift, and I'm old enough and have enough grey hair, as I mentioned, with the like kind of dates to, have been working in mobile forensics pre-iPhone. And it's interesting because just prior to earlier, I was digging out a presentation that I gave back in 2007, and just looking at some of the things that I was kind of doing a little bit of future gazing and so on and so forth. And I think that shift, of course, was massive in terms of, because we ended up having, or we have now, devices that, of course, their capabilities can change completely with just an operating system update, whereas historically you'd never updated, and you don't these days with a feature phone, right? I mean, you don't upgrade the firmware on a feature phone, do you? Unless you're a proper nerd. So that was of course was a massive game changer. So is the pace increasing? I don't know. I think we've still got the kind of the same trends in terms of data moving to the cloud and stuff, that are longer term kind of shifts. So I don't know if the pace is necessarily any quicker. I think that was a massive step change, like kind of thing. But perhaps not so much. I don't think it's increasing necessarily. I just think it's relentless.
Yes, yeah. So in that case, then, if given a lot of the recent changes to the, I suppose the signs of the industry gaining some degree of maturity, I suppose, with Adam and I have harked on about it a lot over the last couple of episodes of this, and just generally in life. But with the introduction of standards such as ISO 17025 and kind of these requirements upon practitioners to demonstrate and have competence in what they do, how have you found that, or has it changed the way that people are looking at training from your perspective, and kind of the frequency of training, I suppose? Is there like more of a demand for constant refresher training to demonstrate ongoing competence, as opposed to maybe back in the day you might have done a course and got a certificate and said, look, I know what I'm doing now, and even 10 years later you'd still go, look, I've got this certificate from 10 years ago. I know what I'm doing. Yeah. Have you found that kind of those standards have maybe changed the industry a little bit in that sense?
I think, I would... I welcome and have done in like kind of presentations and talks I've kind of given in the past, welcome the move towards kind of having standards and, taking away some of, it's our topic, right? And it's a discussion in itself, some of that kind of choice in terms of how a device gets handled, because always can't all be right? There are multiple ways of approaching it, and some of those will be appropriate and some of them won't. So there should be a framework, and there should be, a kind of consistency amongst, different practitioners, for example, within the same unit, but then also across different units within a country and internationally as well. So I guess what's interesting for me is the fact that, of course, the word competence comes up within those, certainly within the accreditation framework that we have in the UK. So it's on the table, right? An organisation cannot deny or pretend that competency isn't important, because the regulator that's overseeing it and leading to the inspections that are kind of happening against those kind of standards says, places an emphasis and puts the spotlight on competency. So I think from my side of things, that obviously helps a training organisation. How can it not help a training organisation? But what it has meant is that perhaps some organisations that perhaps didn't invest in their staff previously kind of can't really get away with that anymore, because perhaps historically it would have been kind of cascade or internal like kind of training, whereby it's like, well, you learn from this person, and who knows where that original information came from. I think it has kind of put the need for for training and external like kind of training onto the table, and there's an expectation of that, being able to say, well, how do you know this person to be kind of competent? So I guess that, that's, to me, one of the things that's kind of come from it is that there isn't really anywhere to sort of hide necessarily in terms of an organization doing the kind of work that we're involved with and not investing in its staff.
Yes, yeah. I mean, speaking from I completely agree with that, what you're saying there as well, and speaking from my ex-managerial kind of position when I was managing a digital forensics unit, I think one of the things that and it's probably because I did have a training background as well from when I was a tutor constable in the training department within the police, but what I was always frustrated with or struggling with was because of the pace of change, even before ISO 17025, the pace of change of the industry and how quickly things moved on. It was frustrating to hear how long it had been since people had update training and refresher training on things that were now clearly redundant and kind of obsolete.
We certainly used the standards in my old police unit to prove the point that we hadn't had training, whereas we were being knocked back, budgets had been cut, and as soon as UCAS come along and we put it out there that, hey, unless we get validated, we have lost our 17025 status, they then stump up the cash. Yeah.
Funnily enough, then people take notice. Just one kind of message, because Phil, you mentioned the competency word, like kind of thing, which is clearly used a lot within our industry. But I remember visiting CCL Forensics, UK, service provider in digital forensics that many people would be aware of. And I remember seeing on, like, it wasn't a poster, but like a kind of plaque or something on the wall there within when I visited their site, the expression that competence is the combination of, or the sum of, education and experience, that it's those two things combined. And that really, I guess, resonated for me. And it's something I've certainly used when I've introduced training courses before, because, of course, we talk about, an ACPO principle. Two talks about, somebody working on original data needing to be competent. But what does competence actually mean? And to me, that really, and I sometimes write it as an equation on the whiteboard, education plus experience, and we or any other like kind of training provider can provide who's to say whether it's half or whether it's 60-40 or whatever the split is, it doesn't matter. But, education is one piece of that, and it's clearly a very important part of it. But the experience is also really important as well, because you can have been on all the training courses in the world and never examined a device in anger and put those into use. Or alternatively, you could have examined like 2,000 devices and had no education. Yeah. Neither of those is right. Is it neither of those you would consider a competent person? It's really having the education and then being able to go back into the workplace and apply and find out how that works in reality.
Yes. Yeah. So it kind of it's beyond just simply getting a certificate to say that you've been somewhere and achieved, or you've got a course and passed an exam, for example. Absolutely.
And I think in that introduction kind of piece that's often written in UK kind of witness statements by a digital forensics examiner, they'll tend to, and I think rightly, state their qualifications. But then also, I would, in terms of writing something like that in their shoes, will be to say, and I have examined in excess of, or I have been, examining.
Yeah, so the previous reports I used to put in court, they always begin with certifications and experience. So literally how you just summed it up.
Yeah. And it is those two things, isn't it? Like kind of thing.
Yeah. Brilliant. I like that. And that in itself kind of lends itself to that accreditation, doesn't it? That kind of that idea of, well, what is an accreditation? Ultimately, is it just ticking a box to say I can do this here? I've got my little mark on my piece of paper to say, yep, I've done this, and then leave it and just do what you need to do? Or is accreditation more than maybe what we sometimes give it credit for, which is ultimately being able to demonstrate from an organizational perspective experience and competence and quality in what you're doing, isn't it? And it's we say with the person, it's kind of competences, experience and formal training, and I think it's almost the same with accreditation for an organisation. It's experience with that kind of all the box ticking, as well as that experience and demonstrating your ability to put it all into action, I suppose.
Yeah. It's funny, the accreditation word is an interesting one, and in 14 years, and I'm going to flip it kind of around slightly, because you're quite rightly talking there about, accreditation of a digital forensics unit. But of course, the question crops up about accreditation of training providers and, and training courses. And it's something whereby, I don't think we haven't got to that point yet, and whether we will do is an interesting kind of crystal ball gazing kind of question about will we reach the point where there are accredited training providers in digital forensics or what have you. Of course, we have UCAS as an accrediting body for for the unit and for the compliance with standard operating procedures and everything else. But over the 14 years that I've been kind of teaching and running the business, people would email or ring up and ask about us and say, is the training course accredited? And it's a really interesting question, because and you'll have kind of maybe been the other side of the fence, or you'll have heard that kind of question, being asked. So the first thing is, nobody wants to hear the word no, right? But actually, what they didn't ring up for necessarily was a discussion about what that question means. But it's a really important discussion, because what do you mean by accredited? All they want to hear is yes, because if you say yes over the phone, they can go to their boss and go, yes, it's accredited, right, fine, we're okay, because it's a kind of backside covering exercise, isn't it? It's we can't get into trouble because we were told it was an accredited course, or we've and so on and so forth. But to me, it's really interesting because. What does it mean? We have no body, certainly in the UK, that accredits training providers or digital forensics training. Will we get there? Who knows? So I think those are good discussions to have, and that should be had kind of within the industry, in terms of, well, what credibility does does this have?
Yeah, I completely agree, and because you do have sometimes these courses that say they're accredited, and the question is kind of immediately, well, who said you were accredited?
By
what
whom
does it mean?
and against what, like, kind of thing.
Yeah, what are the standards in which you were accredited? Did you simply send a check and now you're accredited?
And there's certainly there are both within the the digital forensics like kind of history industry, but then more widely within society as a whole. Clearly, there have been examples of that where whereby a particular badge comes from the fact that you paid some money to an organisation, but and it's right that people understand who is that body, how is that accreditation reached, or have you. But that wasn't what the people ever rang up whenever they were ringing me to. That wasn't a conversation they were looking for. But that's where it takes you, and that's always been my answer has been, well, what do you mean?
But they also ask the same of tool vendors. So vendors, they want, we want your product to be accredited. Well, you shouldn't even trust us if we tell you it is. You should be validating what we're telling you it does. And always trying to pass a bug.
Yeah, and just to kind of maybe it just requires you to turn that phone call around enough times that
there's an experienced trainer.
I mean, kind of, if they're going back to their boss saying, "I rang these people and I think I've just been spammed backwards," then possibly eventually we'll get the point across. But I think it's a very, very valid point. What is accreditation and what does it mean, and who's going to do it? And who's going to be trusted to do it properly when it eventually... Because I think it will eventually come, but who is going to do it, and what's the impact and the cost going to be, and the time, and because we've seen with forensic labs in policing, we've seen the cost and time impact.
I would hate to think of the overall cost to the UK taxpayer of what has been spent in law enforcement getting units past that accreditation.
And I think my personal view on that, we are going down that road, path, aren't we? But I think in terms of the way in which some of the accreditation has been undertaken in the UK has kind of undermined the whole ethos of moving towards improving quality and improving standards, which is what it should all be about. And it's rather the way that's been implemented within UK policing, which is in no kind of clear direction, huge amount of duplication and reinventing the wheel, which, I mean, all three of us have witnessed it, right, across the kind of country. And as you say, Adam, the amount of cost that's been associated with that, because as you know, generally speaking, within a particular unit, the most senior, the most experienced person got taken off of casework to work on, the accreditation side or what have you. So a double whammy. One is you've lost a key member of staff, and B, they're working on something that was not their background, necessarily, but that's then multiplied, around the country, because that's happening here and here and here and here. But
But good fun, and right. As per normal, Phil and I go off on a tangent.
Yeah, exactly. But no, it's the other word, and the other is the C word, of course. We've talked about one C word, which was competency, and now you're worried, right?
That's what you're going to say.
And now you're worried, but is that of certification? Because certification is, of course, the other word that gets bounced around, again, without necessarily having that kind of pre-discussion or the background conversation of like certified against what, or certified to do what. And I think all of this kind of comes back to the accreditation and the certification, all comes back to the need to kind of across the industry, and we're talking, not just UK policing or UK digital forensics, but around the world, competencies ultimately, in terms of identifying what do we expect somebody in this role to be able to do, because any kind of training program that might lead to a certificate, or any accreditation of a particular, whether it's accreditation of a tool or whether it's accreditation of, of an educational program, you have to have something that you're going to kind of score it or measure it against, haven't you? And I think until we've got that, until we've got agreed definitions of competencies of what a digital forensics technician should be capable of doing, or what a kiosk examiner should be kind of capable of doing, regardless of tool, regardless of a vendor necessarily, until we've got those things agreed, how can you certify anything? How can you accredit anything? Because you're only certifying or accrediting against perhaps what you believe, which is will have bias, right?
Yes, absolutely, and I completely agree with that thought, and it kind of I don't know why I just instantly start thinking of a number of I'm going to shoot myself in the foot now, but a number of online training providers. Given that I build online training, why am I saying this? But there's an awful lot of sites out there that you can go and sign up to and kind of do very low cost online training for various things, in anything and everything under the sun. And they all claim that you can kind of be certified in something or other, and like pay £5 or £20 for this kind of course discounted from £5,000. It's like, no, it wasn't. Clearly wasn't. And you'll be certified in something, but there's almost never anything to kind of give some credence or kind of
credibility, kind of thing
where it's
to
from.
it. And I think we do ourselves as an industry, we do ourselves a disservice, because if somebody were to come in from a serious and well-established profession like a lawyer or an accountant or something like that, and look and say, and actually drill down and say, okay, this person or this thing is supposed to be certified. What does that actually mean? And of course, it's kind of an elephant in the room type scenario, isn't it? Because if you put yourselves, and both of you guys, have been practitioners, you kind of know that, you're happy to be able to state in your qualifications that you're a certified blah, 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 because saying you're a certified blah, blah, blah sounds really good, doesn't it? Yeah, because the jury is going to be impressed with that, and the defense barrister might shut up and go and find something else to kind of look at. But there's an element of a charade about it, isn't there? Because we're giving grand titles to things that aren't yet mature enough to have those grand titles. And I don't mean that's not a dig at any one organization or one tool or anything like that. It's a state of the industry type thing. And I'm reminded of a fantastic presentation that I saw from BJ Gleason, who was working in digital forensics, I think, University of Maryland, but randomly I met him in Hong Kong I'm trying to think of whether it was an HTCIA event. I think it may have been. But he gave this fantastic presentation. I can't remember much from that long ago in 2007. But the first chart in his presentation was the Microsoft certification kind of pathway, and it was for MCSE or what have you, it was from this to this to this, and then you became one of these, and then you did this, a nice linear kind of chart. And then he said, and in his Cisco's kind of certification, what is it, CCNA? I'm trying to even remember what the acronyms are, but you've got their various different and it's all very structured and blah blah blah. And then he said, and here is the digital forensic certification pathway. And it was, it was just like a child scribbled on a slide with a crayon, kind of thing. And everyone at first, before he revealed the slide, was just kind of on the edge of their seats, because oh wow, like a training pathway in digital, like a certification pathway. Yeah. This is what I need. And then it was child drawing on something with a crayon. And that was 14 years ago. And I don't think we're there yet necessarily, kind of thing. But
I think you're right, and it is hilarious. I can picture it right now. And the reason it's funny is because it's true.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why everyone in the room was laughing, kind of thing, because they kind of knew that it wasn't where we want to be, because we want to have defined competencies and what a particular piece of software or an individual should be able to do. But until we've got those things down and agreed, the ability to certify or accredit is really difficult, right?
Yes, yeah. I remember when I went back to Beds Police and as a forensic examiner, and we've lost Adam. It's fine, he'll be back. He always comes back. But when I went back as a forensic examiner and kind of was asked to help out with their training pathway. With ISO competence and things like that, with my background in training, I was like, okay, yeah, no, that sounds great. And one of the things that I really wanted to do, just never got the opportunity really to implement it because of time and what's not, was kind of to go through and review all of the digital forensics training that was available out there. Look at all the different courses that were available and actually break those actually down into outcomes and competencies, and
absolutely.
say, right, what do you actually learn on this course? Because there's so many courses where you go on and people, the feedback is, oh, it was a nice course. I mean, I did 80% of it the other week when I went on this other training course, but the rest of it was quite nice and fun, and it was, but what I wanted to do was actually break it down so that you could actually have this role requires these competencies, these learning outcomes need to be ticked. For you to kind of get that, as you quite rightly put, the formal training before the experience or after, and then by basically having a matrix of these courses tick these different boxes at this current moment in time, you could almost kind of look to then try and work out the best
what's the
combination
best fit?
To get everybody trained in the right competencies. And then if people came in from outside the industry, I'm going to let Adam back in.
We probably should.
You probably should. He's back. If we actually kind of had this matrix, you could actually then have people coming in from outside of the organisation with external qualifications of their own, or degrees, or other kind of formal qualifications that you could then say, right, well, let's see what your degree taught you.
What does that give you?
What you learned here, and
where
let's
are the
work
gaps?
it out on the matrix, and we'll work out what we need to send you on and where you need to learn.
Exactly, and I think it would. You're absolutely right. I agree 100%. Is that if you can then kind of measure and it's not scientific necessarily, but you're measuring in a kind of quantifiable way what learning outcomes does this program kind of deliver against. Hugely valuable to the organisation sending people on training, because otherwise you're kind of crossing your fingers and you're kind of guessing and hoping, or basing it on previous attendees' experience, which could be variable. But also, it helps training providers, or it would help training providers, because you can then say, well, body XYZ has said that these are the 50 competencies or what have you, and this program delivers against these, or can actually deliver or develop training to meet those. Right? And then you might have 2 or 3 different training providers, each with a course that kind of hits those in different ways, but at least this is an equivalent of this, or at least it's kind of intended to be, or is kind of 80%, the same kind of target content. So it helps, training providers, I think, if there's something to, if there's whether it's a standard or whether it's a piece of legislation or whatever it happens to be, if there's a fixed kind of target, you can design to that, can't you? And go, right, okay, how would we approach teaching these things? So I don't think, there's kind of a perception that maybe that kind of becomes sterile and uniform and everything else. And I don't think that would be true at all. I think you'd see lots of different kind of creative approaches. But the challenge is in getting those, learning outcomes and kind of competencies written in a sufficiently kind of vendor neutral and technology abstracted kind of way, so that they don't need updating every 5 minutes.
That's it. Yeah, it needs to be inclusive of all of the different providers within the industry,
for sure.
But having that kind of standardization, it would mean that you could customize pathways for specialist roles or specialist environments, or people that are hybrid in their roles, or whatever it is they're going to do. So you get so many hybrid roles where people are part examiner, part investigator, and it would also mean that organisations could better utilise public funds in spending and working out their training budgets for the future, because they could say, look, we've got this framework we can work towards. We've got these roles, we've got these people, they've got these competencies, this stuff needs refreshing or updating, these are the gaps that we've got. Okay, those are the courses they need, and that's how much it costs. Done. oh, what's next? Kind of.
You're absolutely right. It's the taxpayers footing the bill, like kind of thing. So there's a moral and ethical obligation, or have you, to spend that money wisely. So
yeah, absolutely. So. But we could talk about this all night, couldn't we?
We have.
Quite honestly, we have talked about it all night.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say my favourite line of the last 2 episodes, which is, I'm very conscious of time.
Is there needs to be some kind of either something that either a flag or an audio clip or something like that, or
I'll get the little animated Adam and me people that I've built, and kind of we'll get Adam to animate them across the screen as kind of certain points.
Yeah, when I was putting together episode 2, sort of part of our opening 10 minutes is we really need to make these shorter, and episode 2 was longer. So,
it was like straight away. It was like, right, we need to cut it down. We need to be less time in episode 1, and it's like, no, we went over by about 20 minutes.
And I was going to say, just at the end of my last round, the soapbox that I'm on or what have you, is that impacting my height on screen or what have you?
Well, we may have to adjust it as you go. No, I absolutely, genuinely, it's a fascinating topic. It's and it's an important one for the industry. So, I honestly could say I'd love to keep talking about it, but I think we're probably going to have to kind of bring it to a bit of a close on there. But thank you ever so much for coming in and talking to us about it, and give us your experience and your thoughts, and standing on your soapbox for a bit. It was not just informative, but entertaining.
Again, thank you for the invite, and good luck with the podcast, like kind of going forwards, because I think it certainly strikes a chord and it hits the spot. So
thank you ever so much. We'd love to have you back at some point if you'd be willing to come on, and we can carry on the conversation. We can see where we are in like 6 months or 12 months, and kind of we'll just carry on.
Another lockdown.
Hopefully not. Hopefully. Awesome. Well, Kevin, we'll leave it there, but thank you ever so much. All the best, and we'll hopefully speak to you soon.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Cheers. Okay. He's such a legend.
He is. I can see why a shrine exists. And a good shrine.
A good shrine. Yes. I know for a fact that I wouldn't even dream of becoming a shrine at any point. I think no. The man, the legend.
And for any sort of international listeners, be sure to head to Kev's website, and some of his presentations he puts out on there, and
there's some free stuff on there.
Kev's always happy to give advice. If you've got something really interesting that's puzzling you, Kev just loves being involved in the industry, doesn't he? So.
He does. He's naturally very curious, which is why he's been so good at trying to do research and kind of R&D on forensic kind of forensics in terms of practices and also devices and technology. So, definitely really good advice there. Just go to the website, have a look. He's got some free videos. Got all the courses are listed in there as well that you can go on. Just go check him out. And I think he's got a few bits on YouTube for some of the bits that he's done as well. If you look hard enough, you will also find him doing stand-up comedy. So I don't think many people have seen his stand-up comedy, but it's as you might expect. If you've sat on one of his courses, then you know his sense of humour. Yeah. I often groan, but yeah, I won't say why, because then it's still a nice surprise if you go sit on his course. Awesome. Well, thank you to Kevin for giving us the time to have that interview and record the stuff. And we had a really good kind of natter and a chat kind of before and after as well. And it went on for way too long.
Yeah. And the reason this recording has taken a week, because I think we finished recording that night, probably about 8:45 at night. And I'd been teaching all day. I hadn't eaten. And I just said to Phil, I can't do another recording today.
No. Yeah, you hadn't eaten. I remember that. Yeah, you had to go get food, and it was ridiculously late. So, Yeah. Oh well. But yeah, hopefully you all enjoyed that and found it useful. And please feel free to write into us if you've got any questions or queries or thoughts or kind of views on any of the things that we discussed. Yeah. And with that, I think we should move on to our final part of the show.
Your favourite part, the forensic faux pas.
Absolutely. So let's see what Kevin had for us. Okay, so we couldn't obviously allow Kevin to leave without our favourite part of the show, our forensic faux pas. So Kevin, have you? We did give you some pre-warning, didn't we? So we weren't.
You did.
We weren't
That was
cruel.
very generous of you.
We didn't spring it on you, but what we'd love to hear is if you've got any embarrassing or interesting or funny stories that you can share of maybe things that have gone a little bit wrong. You know,
a little bit awry.
little bit awry in your time in forensics. What have you got for us?
So, yeah, and it's not so much imaging the hard drive and finding encase, but of course, you know, it's always funny, and I chuckled when you retold those stories, like kind of thing, because everybody knows somebody who has, and the same things have come out.
It's a rite of passage.
Indeed, and there should be a hat or something, shouldn't there, in the office, like kind of thing that needs to be worn for the rest of the day or the week. But
yeah, it's like you're not a forensic examiner until you've done this.
Until you've done that.
Exactly.
Sorry, my examples were, as you can imagine, from the training classroom, and I'm definitely older. How much wiser am I don't know, but there was something I learned fairly early on in my teaching career, which was, I guess, the danger of clicking on something that you haven't seen before in a classroom with a set of students. And you can imagine, right? You've worked in the industry long enough to know how that might go.
Mind is racing already.
Yeah, mind is racing. And I think there's two examples, really, that kind of spring to mind. One was I was teaching a course here, actually, at Y Boston Lakes, across the way in one of the classrooms, and I'm trying to remember, it may well have been some XRY training back in the early days of ControlF. I was delivering XRY training and exact training for MSAB. Yeah. And we would certainly have bought over time second-hand devices from eBay, which is, of course, kind of useful because sometimes there's deleted data that can be kind of recovered. And I remember this one particular instance where, and of course your forensic tools kind of group stuff to like media, you know, you've got your pictures and your audio and everything else or what have you. And I remember just there was like in the audio category, and you generally think you're okay in the audio category. Pictures, careful. Video, be very, very careful. Audio should be okay. And I remember clicking on this, you know, on this play icon, and it turned out to be a clip from, I think it must have been Snatch rather than the movie Lock, Stock, Two Smoking Barrels. I think it was Snatch, the Guy Ritchie movie. And it was just an expletive-laden, like, kind of quote from, I guess, is it Robbie G, the actor, who played maybe the part Vinny or what have you? I had to look that up because I know him visually, but I couldn't think of... And it was just like this torrent of, like, kind of abuse comes out in like about, I don't know, a 5-second clip. And it was like... Yeah, okay. I apologise if you've been offended by the experience of this training course, but and everyone took it in good humour. So that was lesson number one. On the other example, which is on the same kind of theme. So we're talking back in, I guess, you know, maybe 2009 or something. So we were using, so MSAB had its tool Exact, which many people in the audience will kind of remember. So the physical extraction capabilities and decoding were within Exact, not within XRY at that time. Yep. And the industry was moving really fast at that time in terms of the capabilities of devices you could dump. But then, of course, the decoding capabilities were moving on. So each release, there'd be a little bit more decoding and so on and so forth. And the device in question was an ex-eBay device. So, and of course, as a trainer, you've done your homework beforehand, right? You know the data that's on the phone, you know the messages that are there, you've scanned the pictures, you know whether there's anything, inappropriate and something that can be used, and it's like, right, I'm happy with this like kind of data set. But of course, the tools moved on. The new release, we're teaching on the new release, and the releases are coming out quite rapidly, and suddenly, this new version of Exact can decode MMS messages from this particular device, whether it was a Samsung, I think it probably was, that it couldn't do in the last release, the last time we used it. So we're redecoding data that we've acquired before but hadn't decoded. And of course, you click it, and you'll remember, guys, with an MMS, there's like a kind of play icon, and you click on the play icon, and then zoom up on the screen. And yeah, it was multiple people in bed, and yeah, they weren't asleep. And there it is on the projector screen at the front of the classroom, like kind of thing. Nobody's more shocked than I am. And it's like rapidly like kind of clicking on stuff or what have you to try and minimize it, and probably going bright red. I don't think we called a coffee break immediately necessarily, but I'm sure the students were far more entertained than I was embarrassed, like kind of thing. But
and you just wanted to melt into the floor.
Yeah, it's just like take me away, right? That device gets a red sticker and it goes over there, and we won't be using that one again. So yeah, I guess those are my faux pas. It's don't click on things in the front of a training classroom that you have not previously clicked on and you do not know to be fit for family viewing.
That is very sound advice. Thank you ever so much. That's brilliant. I was curious what you were going to come up with, and you have not disappointed, sir. Thank you very much. I hope there are people who have enjoyed those tales. Hopefully there are going to be people, once the world opens up a little again and we start kind of having in-person events and conferences, I really hope there's a few people that seek you out at the bar and just kind of be like, Mr. Mansell.
and I hope what would be really funny is if there was anybody who was on either of those two training courses who remembers it, like kind of thing, because I would think it probably stayed in the memory. But
if there is anyone from that course and you do remember that, please email us and let us know, and we can reunite you with Mr. Mansell.
No, that would be fantastic.
We can get them on as a special guest to talk about the trauma.
Exactly. The cost of the therapy they've had. Yeah.
Well, this is just for legal purposes. This is nothing to do with chewing the fat. We're merely presenting the information. Not
absolutely.
Amazing. Thank you ever so much, Kevin. That's those are great examples. We're hoping that maybe at the end of the this year's series that we're going to do almost like a best of, and I imagine one of those might be in the running. It might be shortlisted for that. That's gold.
I can just see one of those Yorkshire officers now having your head put on snatch pictures.
With a speech bubble and all sorts of exclamation marks and asterisks and hash symbols all over it.
Yeah. Be prepared for the memes.
Ammunition there. So.
Yeah, no, bring it on.
Yeah, Heather will be happy. Heather will be happy because there's bound to be a meme from that, and we know how much she loves memes. So,
well, there you go. Then that should be the that should be the output afterwards, like kind of thing. Some kind of meme off the back of the faux pas.
Awesome. If you weren't famous over the pod before, you will be now. Or infamous. I don't know.
Yeah, probably that one.
Right, we have taken enough of your time. It's late. it's late in the evening. Thank you ever so much for all the time you've given us this evening, Kevin. We really, really appreciate it. Loved having you on the show as well. I hope you've enjoyed it and had a good time.
Definitely, my pleasure.
Thank you very much, and we look forward to hopefully seeing you soon.
Sounds good. Take care.
All the best.
Bye-bye.
Now, I have to say, when we were getting Kevin on the show, given that he is in training and not a practitioner in the field, I was really curious what his forensic faux pas were going to be, or if he was going to tell us, "Oh, I'm not sure if I've got any," because
I was expecting fire or something that. Yeah.
I know. But when he said, "Oh no, I've got a couple," and I thought they were brilliant.
But hopefully it makes sense what we were talking about at the start. That if you were part, then please get in touch.
Yes.
You might have only just got over the trauma, but please get in touch.
Yes. I'm really curious. I would really love to hear from anybody who was there at the time. That was brilliant.
But at least it's easier for Kevin now, because like we said, when phones are reset now, generally they do a better job. So hopefully he's still not getting any more of those handsets.
Very true. I've got more. I just thought of just literally now of some more stories related to similar things, but we'll save it for the next time.
Yeah.
Because we are getting to that point where we need to close up shop really.
Yeah.
Thank you again for taking the time to listen. We really hope you enjoyed it. Hope you found it useful. And as always, please keep the comments, thoughts, feedback coming in. We love hearing from you. And if you've got any suggestions on topics and stuff you want us to talk about, let us know.
Yeah. Do you remember the email address, Phil?
I've got the account saved on my
You have?
saved on my workstation, and I can't remember it off the top of my head. Is it something like ctf.podcast or podcast.ctf or something?
Yeah, I'm trying to.
I need to have it written like on a post-it note on the screen or something.
I can't remember off the top of my head.
I will tell you. I will. Hang on. I'll tell you. It's podcast.ctf@gmail.com.
And our Twitter account is Chewing the Fat Pod. @Chewing the Fat Pod.
Yes. So, and we still don't have a LinkedIn.
No.
We're not that.
One thing I am going to quickly plug before we go is the new Start Me DFIR page, who very kindly put our podcast on.
They did. I was surprised at that. So many resources on there.
Yeah, it's literally just one website that lists DFIR resources, and it's really good. And I'm going to plug that, and I'll put that in the links as well.
Awesome. Yes, we were quite surprised when that came around to an end. Suddenly it was like, oh, look, we made the list.
We did.
We made the list. Amazing. And saw some really nice comments from a few people who kind of said, oh, yeah, found this podcast and kind of did a mention for us and stuff. And it was, saying, yes, there's not that many episodes. We're still new, but that people were really enjoying it and liking it. And so please keep those comments coming in and let us know if you want to kind of do a mention or shout out or whatever.
Yeah.
We'd love to hear from you.
Sounds good.
So,
but no, another great episode.
Well,
if I do say so.
If you do say so yourself. Made great, I think, through our special guest.
Yeah, definitely. Certainly honoured to take so much of his evening up. I don't think he expected us to drag him down to our level and just talk and go off tangents. But no, he was a good guest.
He was lovely guy. So do reach out to him if you've got any questions you want to ask him as well, or reach out to us and we can put you in touch. It's no problem. But I think we'll wrap it up there. So from me, thank you very much and good night.
Thank you from me wherever you're listening. Thanks for tuning in and giving us your time.
And we'll see you next time.
Cheers, Phil.
Cheers, Adam.